Hello and welcome back to more parallel and perpendicular lines. If you're staying with these videos, thank you. Um, we are going to be doing first parallel and perpendicular, but today it's more algebra based. As you can see, there's no graphs on this one. It's all numbers. So hopefully you guys can rise to the equation and run with it. Rise. Run, because that's slope. Anyways, I'm the only one here to laugh at my jokes, but I know you're laughing at home. Anyways, parallel lines, as a review, are two lines that do not intersect and they are on the same plane. And a plane is just like a piece of paper or a desktop. Two-dimensional figures like this, as opposed to a three-dimensional figure where you can have one like on a plane, but the other one's like pointing straight up. So like my fingers right here are not considered parallel lines because one's in the third dimension and the other's in the second. Parallel lines have to be on the same plane. They have to be on the same piece of paper, basically. So if they don't intersect, then they are parallel. Whereas if you go like this, then yeah, they're going to intersect and they're not parallel. But I just wanted to say, because I'm a nerd, that you can have two lines that don't intersect, but they're not called parallel. They would be called skew, because if you put one in the third dimension. But we don't do that right now in geometry. So I'm just going to go ahead and glance over it in the definition. The definition of parallel lines, I'm going to say they're coplanar. That just means that they're in the same plane. So coplanar lines that don't intersect. Algebraically, if you watch my last video, the way you can tell is that they have the exact same slope. Which was rise over run. Whereas perpendicular lines intersect at a right angle. There you go. So perpendicular lines intersect at exactly a right angle algebraically if they are opposite reciprocals. If you did not watch my previous video, then opposite is referring to whether something is positive or negative. So like positive versus negative. If one of the numbers is positive, the other number has to be negative. Or if the first one is negative, the other has to be positive in terms of rise run. Reciprocal is when you switch the top and bottom of a fraction. So switch the numerator and denominator. And some examples of that. So this is 3 over 2. So if I'm talking about opposite, the opposite of 3 over 2 would be negative 3 over 2. But the reciprocal, instead of 3, 2, would be 2, 3. So the opposite reciprocal, or sometimes they call it the negative reciprocal. I don't like that, to be honest. I like opposite. Would be that. So positive turns to negative. 3 over 2 is 2 over 3. For the number 4, like the opposite of 4 is going to be negative 4, but you can't really switch this thing right now because it doesn't have a numerator and denominator. So you just have to remind yourself that anything that a whole number is over 1. So if you have a 4, that's a 4 over 1. So when you do the reciprocal of 4 over 1, it's going to be 1 over 4. Now in this next one, it's negative, which means my answer is going to be positive. Once again, opposite, positive, negative. So this one will be positive, and instead of 5, 8, it'll be 8, 5. The number 1 is very interesting, because it too, like a 4, is just like a 1 over 1. But when you flip 1 over 1, it's just going to be 1 over 1 again. And the opposite from positive to negative is just negative. But -1/1 is a whole number. It's -1. So you get just -1. And finally, undefined. This one is harder to explain, so I'm going to give you the answer and then explain it. Undefined's reciprocal is 0, the number 0. The reason for that is to picture for a second if you had the number 0/1. 0/1 would simplify to 0. But if you were to do this one's reciprocal, well, first of all, the opposite would make it negative, but the reciprocal of 0/1 would be 1/0. But the thing is, you can't divide by 0. That's not possible in math. Just to show you, if you don't believe me, 1 divided by 0, it just says error can't divide by 0. So you can't do it. So that's why it says undefined. In picture form, that just means you have a vertical line and a horizontal line. Undefined is vertical and 0 is horizontal. And sure enough, they would make perpendicular lines. So yada yada. What that means in these questions, it says determine if they are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. All you need to know is you find the slopes, and they will either be the same for parallel, opposite reciprocals for perpendicular, or anything else would be neither. So I'll write that in my notes over here. Parallel is the same. So if you get the same number, perpendicular would be opposite reciprocals. And neither is just anything else. So I'm literally just gonna separate this into two parts. Find the slope over here of the first one, find the slope of the second one over here, and at the end I'm just gonna compare these two numbers and see if they are the same, if they're opposite reciprocals, or anything else. It is important to note that if it's perpendicular, it does have to be the opposite and reciprocal. It can't just be the opposite, it can't just be the reciprocal, it has to be both. So keep that in mind. Going forward, the slope formula, if you have forgotten it, I'll also write it down here. The slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I would suggest pausing at this point to see if you can find the slope of this one, to see how much you need to review or not. Okay, with that said, this is x1, y1. This is x2, y2. Once again, if you were stuck on that part, I would go ahead and pause, see how much you remember. Okay, y2 would be 6 minus y1, which is 3, over x2, which is 2, minus x1, which is negative 2. 6 minus 3 is 3. 2 minus negative 2, that just turns to a big old plus sign, and you get 4. That does not simplify, so you get 3/4. Here, same thing. This is y2 minus y1, so 3 minus 0, over x2 minus x1, so that'd be 3 minus negative 1. 3 minus 0 is 3. 3 minus negative become a big old plus sign. 3 plus 1 is 4, so you get 3/4. So I'd come back over here, parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Parallel says it's the same number. Are these the same number? Yes, they are. So the answer here is parallel. Ta-da! Next one. Same thing, I'd recommend pausing. So I'll go ahead again, x1, y1, x2, y2. So over here, I would have 4 minus 2, 5 minus 0, 4 minus 2 is 2, 5 minus 0 is 5, so I get 2/5. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is 3, y1 is 8, x2 is 3, x1 is 1. 3 minus 8 is negative 5. 3 minus 1 is 2, so negative 5 over 2. I'll go back to over here. Parallel, same number. Are these the exact same number? No. This is 2 over 5. This is not 2 over 5, so not parallel. Perpendicular, opposite reciprocal. Are they opposites? So is one of them plus and the other minus? One of them is plus and the other is minus. So far, so good. It is opposite. Reciprocal. So this is 2 over 5, so the other one should be 5 over 2. This is 5 over 2. So it is reciprocal. Because it is opposite reciprocal, the answer is perpendicular. Done. So let's go forward. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 6 minus 8 is negative 2. 2 minus negative 1 becomes a plus sign, so that's 3. Once again, this is a video, so if you need to rewind or pause, you are welcome to do so. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So 3 minus 2 is 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, 1/4. Parallel would be the same number, definitely not the same number. Perpendicular is opposite reciprocal. Well, these aren't even the same numbers. There's no way. Like, they are opposites. One's positive and the other's negative. But 2 over 3, this should be 3 over 2, and it's not. So this is neither. And last one. x1, y1, x2, y2. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You know, I'm just showing all my work because I'm a teacher. However much work you need to do that much work. So y2 minus y1. x2 minus x1. y2 minus y1. x2 minus x1. 4 minus 3 is 1. Negative 1 minus 2. Do you remember what that is? Negative 1 minus 2. Negative 3. So negative 1/3. 6 minus 3 is 3. -4 minus a -5 turns into a plus. -4 plus 5 is 1. So 3 over 1, which, you know, technically is equal to 3, but considering we're about to just compare them, that's all it's asking for. I don't really care about simplifying it. Parallel would be the exact same number. These are not the exact same number. Perpendicular, opposite, is one of them positive and the other negative? Yes. This one's positive and that one's negative. So opposite, check. Reciprocal, 1 over 3, 3 over 1. Yes, 1 over 3, 3 over 1 flips upside down. So it is the reciprocal. So these are perpendicular. There you go. That's everything. I just do want to mention real quick that, you know, this is math class, and the math teacher is often try to trick you. So I just want to show you real quick trick you questions. One of those common trick you questions is the whole parallel, perpendicular, or neither kind of thing. And like one of the slopes will be -3 and the other will be +3. And it's like, is that parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So the reason this one's tricky is because they're not the same number, so definitely not parallel. But if you look at them, they are opposites. 3 and -3 are opposites. But the problem is that they are not also reciprocals. So this is actually a neither question, and that tricks a lot of people up. It has to be opposite and reciprocal. If it was -3, the answer should have been a +1/3, because you have to flip the 3 into a 1 over 3. Same thing if I had like 2 over 7 and 7 over 2, then they're obviously not the same number. But when you look at perpendicular, they are reciprocals of each other, but they are not opposite reciprocals. So it would also be neither. Because if you had 2 over 7, you would have to do a -7 over 2 as the actual correct answer. So do make sure you are checking for that, because it's my job as a math teacher to make sure you understand the material. And the only way to make sure you understand the material is to try and trick you, and then you don't fall for it. So that is how I have to teach. That is how I have to grade. So I just want to make sure I'm explicitly saying it now. Be on the lookout for that kind of stuff. All right, have a good one. Hopefully this is useful to you. Bye.